And nuts are fantastic for you. Studies have shown that eating a serving of tree nuts can reduce recurrence of colorectal cancer among stage 3 survivors by 42%. And in this study, it also decreased overall mortality by 57%. So walnuts are wonderful because they also are packed with omega-3s, omega-3 fatty acids, which are great for brain health. And those fat is not bad. Fat has also, I was around during the low fat craze, and we go through different phases. So fat was the enemy, now it's carbs. None of these foods are your enemies. We just have to eat the right varieties. So this is one of my favorite tidbits. Walnuts and pecans also have a phytochemical called elagitanin. And this compound works to nurture the good bacteria in the gut and can cause cancer cells to basically self-destruct. Almonds, hazelnuts, and pine nuts are also a great source of vitamin E, which again, as I mentioned before, is an antioxidant and works to protect your cells against DNA damage. The only thing I want to mention is Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts can contain a lot of selenium. So you don't want to go eating, Brazil nuts by the handful, because there is such a thing as selenium toxicity. But that's just for Brazil nuts. All the other nuts, I wouldn't recommend eating chunks of, because they're still very high calorie, but you want to aim for getting I like to recommend that people get a variety of at least 30 grams or 1 ounce a day of a variety of nuts and seeds. If you have, and peanut butter is okay too. It's not here, but peanut butter is also a nice source of fiber and healthy fats. Coffee drinkers rejoice. Research shows that coffee can reduce the number of deaths for colorectal cancer by 18%. And this makes sense because coffee is plant-based food, so it has those antioxidants and phytochemicals. Recent research from the American Institute for Cancer Research has also linked consumption of coffee to a decreased risk for endometrial and liver cancers as well. If you're not a coffee drinker, you don't need to start. You can get the same benefits from eating all the healthy foods that we've been talking about so far. I also just want to make a note that the study was done on black coffee. It was not done on frappuccinos. It wasn't done on, yes, yay, coffee. It wasn't done on what we see, like those coffee, like I call them desserts because it's not even not drinking coffee anymore. The whipped cream, lots of sugar. This is done, 1 or 2 sugars is fine. Not too many sugars. I know there are people out there, I've seen them, 8, 9 sugars in their coffee. Slowly getting rid of that can be helpful too. One way to decrease it is by maybe one day you do 8.5, for a week. Then you do 8. I'm all about that, those slow incremental changes, because my attitude is those baby steps get you there. Those baby steps will walk the 5K. So let's talk about the standard American diet. So this is what a typical plate of food can look like for the standard American diet. They call it the old American plate. So as you can see, there's like that huge slab of protein, the starchy veg, 2 starchy veg, because you got the potatoes and you've got the peas, right? And then you got that big slab of butter. So this is called the transitional plate. So this is when we're starting to do that transition into that healthy lifestyle. Again, baby steps. I highly encourage, I don't want anybody to boil the ocean or any of that stuff. Baby steps. Change one thing a month if you can, right? So in a year, that's 12 things that you changed. If you change one thing a week, that's 52 things that you've changed in a year. So those small little baby steps add up to huge, huge accomplishments. So this is that transitional plate. So, we're starting, right? You're seeing that the steak's a little smaller and the red meat's a little smaller, right? We can go for like the non-starchy vegetable, like green beans. That's the brown rice there, kind of starting to put in a little bit of that fiber, right? And then we go into the new American plate. So this is where we're seeing, we're getting away from that red meat protein, right? And now you're seeing more vegetables, right? You've got the broccoli, you've got the zucchini. You still have the whole grains. Honestly, I would prefer there instead of, I believe that's brown rice. Maybe, some traditional grains. We've got teff or something like wheat berries or quinoa. Some of those that might have a little more fiber. Wheat berries have a ton of fiber and they have a ton of protein as well. So and that helps with satiety. So kind of moving along with that, like promoting even more fiber. And you can even keep that potato from the mashed potatoes. I'm a huge fan of potatoes. They're wonderful. They're high in fiber. With the skin, they have tons of vitamin C, potassium. Not huge, but a small potato, a sweet potato, a purple potato, that could be really nice there too, instead of the replacing the grain every once in a while, just for variety's sake. So what do we want to look for? So we just talked about kind of how to integrate. Now, what do we want to avoid? So in 2010, the World Health Organization classified processed meats as a known human carcinogen. A carcinogen is a substance that causes cancers. Processed meats such as sausage, hot dogs, kielbasa, as well as deli meats like ham, turkey, salami, bologna, pepperoni, they can contain a high amount of salt along with the preservatives such as nitrates. And these preservatives can be harmful to our health as they can harm the good bacteria living in our guts. Also, something to watch out for is a consistent. So if you're always eating high salt intake, that can increase your risk for stomach cancer. So it's again those baby steps. If you're having these foods every day, maybe try to cut down to a couple times a week, or where you can slowly cut them down. Um, and if you were to eat 50 grams of some type of processed meat product every day, this can increase your risk of colorectal cancer by 18%. And 50 grams would be the equivalent of like a hot dog or 2 slices of deli meat. Also, red meat, while it contains some nutrients that can be beneficial in the context of a healthy diet, the standard American diet, we just eat too much, and that could be harmful for colorectal health. It's recommended that you eat no more than three 4 to 6 ounce servings of red meat every week. So you want to keep your limit to 18 ounces per week of red meat consumption. And then this is the strongest evidence we have right now when it comes to diet, nutrition, physical activity, and colorectal cancer. So we know that physical activity and moving your body every half an hour can help your colon do its job more effectively. So what's happening with exercise is that everything's moving. I'll talk a little bit in the next slide. So eating processed meat, drinking alcohol, and obesity can increase the risk for colorectal cancer. Also, for some reason, height can, so taller individuals can have a greater risk for colorectal cancer. And then exercise lowers sex hormones like estrogen and growth factors that have been directly linked to colon and breast cancers. Exercise lowers inflammation, like I mentioned earlier, it's a cause of cancer. It also alters bile metabolism and increases the transit time of food so that the GI system is exposed to fewer carcinogens. So remember when I said earlier when I was talking about the bacterial toxins and our exposure to toxins? So exercise, moving the body, helps get everything moving. So it's less time of that exposure. So the general guidelines are 2.5 to 5 hours of moderate exercise per week, or an hour and a quarter to 2.5 hours of vigorous activity. So that's a equivalent of a brisk 30-minute walk, 5 days a week, 45 minutes of Zumba 3 times a week. So that'll be great for your 5K on the 23rd. You'll be having that exercise. You'll be moving for, half hour, 45 minutes an hour. So that works out beautifully. So not only are you, raising funds for colorectal cancer awareness, but you're also preventing, helping reduce your risk for colorectal cancer doing the 5K. Another risk factor is smoking. So I know for a lot of us, the first thing we think about for smoking, for health-wise, is lung cancer. Smoking is also a major risk factor for the development of colorectal cancer. Smoking essentially affects every organ in your body. So if you're diagnosed with cancer and continue smoking, it can introduce complications and result in a poor likelihood of a successful recovery. And you might have other cancers that are linked to smoking. So here we see that smoking is strongly associated with the development of colorectal cancer right after lung, bronchial, and cancer of the trachea. So it's up there. And alcohol is a carcinogen and is also associated with colorectal cancer. So the more alcohol someone drinks, the higher their risk for colorectal cancer. And so how much should we drink? Well, one drink for the ladies is 12 ounces of beer, 5 ounces of wine, 1.5 ounce shot, and 8 to 9 ounces of malt liquor. So that's one drink for the ladies and max 2 drinks for men. And you can't bank them all to one day because drinking more than 4 drinks is actually considered binge drinking. So with preventative screenings, we know that more than 60% of colorectal cancer cases can actually be prevented. So screening is incredibly important because colorectal cancer will become a reality for every 39 out of 100,000 individuals in Jersey. So 12 people will die from colorectal cancer. But we know now that with screening, 60% of these deaths can be prevented. So the current guidelines are right now we should start screening at age 45. So that's up until 75. That doesn't mean you stop screening at 75. You have that conversation with your doctor between 76 and 85 to see if colorectal cancer screening is something you should do. After 85, screening is not really recommended. And at this point, the benefits don't outweigh the risks. So that's when you see the reduction in screening recommendations. So there are different types of ways to screen for colorectal cancer. So the gold standard is colonoscopy, but some people really don't want to do colonoscopy. And the reason the colonoscopy is the gold standard is because as they're looking through the colon, the loop has a lance and it's taking those polyps. Remember when we saw the video of the little polyps of the tree with all those polyps? So they'll go in and they'll pull that tissue. They'll pull those. And so they're actually taking the cancer out. They're taking that cancer risk for those polyps to become cancerous. They're taking that out. So that's why the colonoscopy is the gold standard. However, not everyone has access. Not everyone wants. I've had people tell me point blank, I will never get a colonoscopy. That's okay because we have other exams. So there's FIT tests. There's FOBT, which is fecal occult blood test. Occult means hidden. So they're looking for hidden blood in the stool. So FIT kits that you may have heard of, those are tests where it's a smear of stool that you could do at home. You send it out for a lab to get tested, and then you get the results back. So those have to be done every year to be effective, but they are effective.